Let's be real. Chasing clients for approvals can turn any project into a total headache. But what if you could skip all of that and actually get decisions fast and stress-free? So give me a couple of minutes and I'll show you the exact super simple method successful agencies are using right now to keep projects moving, their clients happy without endless email threads, awkward follow-ups, and late night Slack messages. I've seen this process work for teams who totally felt stuck and overwhelmed, and suddenly they're wrapping up projects on time, clients are excited, and everyone gets to breathe a little bit easier. And today I'm letting you in on how to make this your new normal. So a little bit of a caveat here that I just want to mention for those of you that are working with enterprise type clients. This method will still work with your existing client stakeholder, but they have legal approvals, management approvals, brand approvals, all sorts that ultimately are going to still create some aspect of delay. So you're not going to get that instant approval on it. So what ends up happening for these approvals in the first place is that you're asking for feedback. You're asking for an approval on getting things forward. And the client's either given too many choices or the request is actually quite vague and they feel unsure of exactly what it is that they should be doing. And so your team is stuck waiting because you didn't provide all the information that they needed in order to be able to move forward. The reality is that they're not experts in what you do. You're the expert in what you do. And if you're leaving it up to them entirely to move these things forward, you're creating for a bottleneck in them and you're creating for loads of anxiety. So you're suffering, they're suffering, nobody's happy, and your project gets delayed and you end up making less profit. So what I want you to do is I want you to curate your choices to be able to create for swift approvals. So the reality is that you want to actually go in with, let's say that you're going to share 3 different aspects of creative, but what you want to do is you want them to understand what is your one recommendation. There should be one aspect of recommendation of the direction that you want to go that has all of that thinking and criteria, where they have all the pros and cons, the understanding, the criteria that allows for it to go into it. And don't be going in with open-ended kind of feedback requests. So here's the way that you want to actually go into creating those curated choices is you want to remind them about their goals, what the considerations were, where they are in the project, what exactly they want to be looking at and how they should be looking at this specific phase of the project. And what were the things and considerations that you ultimately put into it? So like, why did you choose this specific direction? What were the things that you took into it? What were the considerations? What were the discounts? What were all the directions that you decided to not go? There was a plethora of different options that you could have gone, and you decided to not go in hundreds, maybe even thousands of them. And there's reasons why, and you need to give them that context. And here's the Achilles heel kind of problem of what ends up happening is this open-ended feedback request. Let me know what you think. Tell me what you feel. Is there something else that you think we should try? The reality is they don't know. They have no idea. And frankly, if they did, they probably wouldn't be hiring you in the first place because you're here to be the expert. You're here to guide them and provide them with more clarity. And what ends up resulting, if you just ask them this kind of question, you're getting more rounds of revisions, they have less clarity, they don't know the direction, they feel uncomfortable because ultimately what they care about is the outcome for this specific project. But you haven't given them the tools that they need in order to be able to do so. So let's say that the way that you want to get feedback is in one specific system. So, hey, the objective of this specific phase of the project is to really get a clean understanding of the direction that you feel from a creative perspective and making sure that this feels close to your brand, this feels like this is resonating with your vision and ultimately with your ICP. So we've taken all of this into consideration. These are the directions that we recommend. This is what we've already discounted and decided to go in a direction. So here's the way that I want you to look at this is this already fits into your brand narrative and direction. The thing that I want you to be thinking about here is with the medium that we are using, we're specifically going after men in this specific campaign. But does it feel a little bit too masculine? Does it feel like it might be a little bit too much of this? Does this bring this specific quality of your product, this specific feature, does it bring it and highlight it enough that allows for it to actually truly differentiate yourself between this competitor, and this competitor? So I want you to think about that and then let me know what your thoughts are specifically on these 3 questions so that they have 100% clarity on exactly what it is that you're looking for feedback on so that you're able to get that detail, you're able to give them the considerations, the way that they want to be looking at it and how it is that they should be making the choice in the first place. The more direction that you give them, the more guided, specific questions that they have, they're going to feel a whole lot better. So just to wrap this up with a bow clearly is that you're going to give them what it was that you have of the considerations that you've made, the pros and cons, your recommendation. You're going to give them how it is that you want to feedback. You want to give them exactly the way that they're going to give feedback, the specific questions that you have that they need to answer, how it is that they're going to think about it, and the timeline of when they are going to need to get it to you by. That if it doesn't come in by here, then that means that we are going to delay the project. and that means X, Y, and Z on a timeline. Or if we don't get feedback within this timeline, it's going to cost an extra this amount of cost. And you need to give these concrete deadlines and ultimately the consequences. Every single one of us in this life have consequences when we don't show up for things. If you don't show up to work today, you're going to either not get paid, you're going to lose your job, the client's going to fire you, all sorts of different consequences that ultimately happen. And the same thing is true for clients. But the thing that you don't want to have happen is have them be surprised. So make sure that they are clear on what exactly are your expectations, what the deadline is, and when it is that you need these things by, but also what it is exactly that you're looking for, so that the client isn't overwhelmed, the client is clear on what needs to happen, and they really get the value that you're bringing to the table. Because the more ambiguous that you end up being here in the way that you're presenting the work in the first place, whether it be strategy, whether it be a design, whether it be a concept, it doesn't matter. You have gone through loads of decision-making criteria, loads of things that you've been thinking about that's ultimately going to give them a higher likelihood of the outcome. There's a strategy, there's a rationale, there's a reason. And if you're not providing it to them, they are going to be in a place where they are unsure of the direction because frankly, they don't know what's right and wrong. They don't. And you need to help them and support them at each one of these steps that allows for them to make these bigger decisions, that allow them to feel more comfortable. And the more that they feel comfortable in the advice that you're providing to them, the more that you give them direction, the more that they're going to feel more comfortable as the relationship continues to go. So you have a true opportunity to build trust with your client, being able to reduce the amount of anxiety, give them direction on how it is that they should be presenting their feedback in the first place so that they don't end up with these subjective oriented things. I mean, if my advertising is true specifically for the agency that runs our ads, the reality is that a lot of the decision making that I would have had and what ultimately resonates with me doesn't particularly work specifically well in my ads. More often than not, the ads that I thought were not the most beautiful ads are the ones that end up working better, the ones that I wouldn't have liked. And the data points end up actually guiding the decision-making criteria. So here's what we're going to test. Here's the direction that we're going to go. And ultimately, there's so many different pieces that I need to be guided by someone that is an expert. I am not an ad buying expert. I know enough to play one maybe in a show, but the reality is that there are people that are more adept at that have spent more of their time in it. And you are that person for your clients. You need to give them direction. You need to give them clarity. You need to make them feel safe in the direction that they're feeling. You know, fixing your approval process is only part of the equation. Ever notice how when the work is top-notch, clients sometimes still just seem to drift away and you're left wondering why? Turns out it's not just about deliverables. So in the next video, I'm going to break down exactly what clients are actually looking for so you can turn great projects into long-term relationships, bringing more and more revenue to your agency. Tap on over and let's make sure that your clients never want to leave.